Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome everyone and our audiences to the Zoom and Facebook Live. I'm Bobby Torrez, also known as Bobby Likes Spooky on YouTube and on the internet, things like that. And tonight on Fangoria's Convo Fango, we will be hosting a discussion with some leaders in the industry for a panel to discuss the toll, which I cannot wait to talk about. On the panel tonight, we have Mr. Michael Nader here, the director of the film. What's up, Mike? If you don't mind if I call you Mike.
That's great. I love it.
And we also have Max Topplin, that's the actor in the movie and also a producer.
Hey, you guys.
And then we have Jordan Hayes, also an actor and producer of this film, which is amazing. I strive to be that one day. How are you guys today?
We are doing good. How
Yeah,
about you?
Awesome. I'm pretty good. Just living the life, ready to talk about this movie. When I first watched this movie, my anxiety was a little bit up just because there was a little bit of relatable things in this movie, especially in the beginning of the film. So I just can't wait to talk about it.
Great. Love it.
Well,
Awesome.
I think first we should talk about your background though, because it's so awesome and spooky and great.
Thank you. Again, I have like a YouTube channel, so I try to make it look nice. You know what I mean? I try to make it pleasing to the eye. And I'm a collector. I like to collect all types of horror, spooky things. So thank you, Jordan. I appreciate that. Yeah. All right. So my first question is for all of you. What is the inspiration for this film, and did you guys have any personal experiences related to the film?
Yeah, so I would say it was less informed by personal experiences. I can certainly get into the personal experiences side of it, but I think the movie began more in a sort of general sense of having kind of for years been very intrigued by the social dynamics of rideshare as this new thing in our society that we are even still figuring out. 4 years after I wrote the script, I still feel like there's just a lot of kind of just interesting dynamics with respect to drivers and passengers, where before in taxi services, there was a sort of presumption of anonymity and the presumption of kind of there wouldn't be conversation and that would just be it. And now with Lyfts and Ubers, et cetera, there's a little bit more of this sense. I mean, we were all so excited. And so kind of it was this fun new thing where it's like you're going to talk to your driver and you're going to become best friends by the end of the ride. And then as the years went on, we kind of continued to explore it. It was like there was a dark side that was revealed to the reality of rideshare, just in the exactly what you were describing, which is there is an anxiety that can sometimes emerge, and it usually is not as justified as the anxiety in, or at least it's usually not as macabre as the anxiety in the toll. But that said, it's just you can, anytime when you're getting to know a stranger who you have put your life in their hands, there's going to be tension. And so that was interesting to me. And I kind of started out actually with the opening image. That was my first idea, was the notion that you could have an opening shot that's a rideshare app where you see specifically a driver swipe no on two men and then yes on a woman, and that you could then follow him into the airport. And then that you would find this character, this woman, and that you would immediately see that she is kind of a formidable foe. And that even though you start out with this driver who's mysterious and he's a little disconcerting, this isn't going to be, he's not just picking up some woman to take her out and immediately kill her. Like you just quickly see, okay, this woman is someone who's going to put up a very serious fight if this guy is what we think he is. And I just love the idea that you could have a whole sort of extended opening sequence of suspense between those two people. And then I kind of gave myself the challenge, could I write an entire movie around that relationship? So that was kind of that was my original inspiration.
Yeah. That's what I love so much about it. Just because like everything that you just said, it seems personable. And then Max, you did an amazing job because I didn't know what he was trying to do or what he was going to do. I didn't know what his intentions were. Like at first I did, but then I was just like, all right, that quickly changed throughout the course of the film, and then it changed again. So I'm just like, what's going on?
That's an incredible compliment, Bobby. It was, approaching that role, reading the script from start to finish, like you see, okay, that's the trajectory of this character. I now know who this is, but I didn't want to go into it feeling like I needed to play the outcome of the film. You know, I really went into it thinking, okay, what makes this guy human? Where are his insecurities? How can an audience fall in love with someone that in the end, they're probably not going to like, but still you have to humanize that person. So to me, it was just like the most exciting, fun role to play. And thank you, Nader. Thank you for writing. It's really, it was a great experience.
And thank you for, you knocked it out of the park. I agree with Bobby that it is so much Max's performance that continues the uncertainty and this constant seesaw of, is he, isn't he? And that is, I knew that was a huge challenge in the script, and Max pulled it off. By some miracle, he did so great. It's so perfect.
It was literally a miracle. There was something in the water, or lack thereof. Yeah. But thank you guys. Yeah. And obviously, you know, just being able to spar with Jordan throughout the entire film, the fact that it is almost a two-hander, there was just this energy brewing between us. The fact that we also, we're not sleeping, we're producing the movie, taking out the garbage, you know, making sure that everything worked. We were out of our minds. Okay. So that sparring was so kind of like true and in the moment. And I think that that's how our performances really were able to get where they needed to go.
Yeah, I was going to ask you guys that, like, what did it take for you guys to get in there? Because there was a lot of intense scenes in this film, especially with you, Jordan. Like, you was going in this movie. And I felt bad for you in so many ways. And it was even parts where I felt bad for Max's character, but then that kind of changed. But Jordan, like, what do you, well, for both you guys, what do you guys do to prepare for these roles?
Yeah, I mean, I think like we got really lucky that Nader wrote these characters that were very dynamic, and there was a lot that wasn't on the page for us to play, which I always love as an actor. I hate it when writers, you know, literally write what you're supposed to be saying. And Nader's a very talented writer, and what he was able to do was write a lot of like subtext that we were able to play off of. And so that was great. And I love working with writer directors, because it's such, when you're working with an auteur like that, they just have the answer for everything. So anytime I had a question, or I was like, oh, you know, what about this in Cammy's backstory? I could go to Nader and he would have an answer right away. So I think feeling that trust in our writer director was really big for us, especially as Max said, because we were producing at the same time. So we didn't have the luxury of kind of, you know, sitting around and you know, doing extensive background work on our characters, because we would be like calling vendors and trying to get you know, sky lifts and stuff. But yes, that was really helpful, just being able to have like Nader's wealth of knowledge to go to whenever we needed to.
Did you have anything to add to that, Max?
You know, what I found so interesting about this movie, it kind of circles back to what Jordan said. Because we were so busy, because we didn't have the time to overthink these character choices, to overthink, you know, kind of some of the performances that we were giving, everything just came off more organically. So we knew these characters because we had been trying to get this movie made for months. We knew these characters because we haven't, you know, we've just lived it. We've been sleeping in it and dealing with Michael for months on end about this script. So I feel like because we were so close to it, we could kind of stand back on the day of actually shooting and just deliver it.
Okay, that's awesome. Well, it definitely shows, you could definitely tell that you guys put a lot of work into this. And I watch a lot of movies, so I definitely can tell, you know, when effort is definitely being made. So good job to all three of you guys. It was a good film. I loved it. Yes. So Michael, was there any challenges making this film? Like, you smile, so I'm sure there were.
Good question.
But were there any specific ones?
Yeah, no, I mean, it was definitely, I guess I would say, I should say, go into any production. I mean, this is my first feature, but I had done a short. I had done one short of like a sort of a real budget that was still a very kind of micro budget indie production. That taught me that independent productions are always going to be kind of rife with challenges and just delays and unexpected realities. So I certainly went in saying, okay, I need to be fully prepared for just extensive delays and unexpected weather problems and unexpected environmental issues, you know, and all of that I think was borne out, but it wasn't a problem because at least it wasn't like, it never scared me because I just kind of expected that on some level. I had also sort of watched two close friends. I had written two feature scripts that were also made, and I got to kind of see up close the reality of just a really sort of, you know, of a ragtag team of just young, energetic people working their asses off to make a movie. I mean, it's incredibly exciting and fun, but it also just, there's a lot of difficult realities to that. And certainly, I mean, the biggest subcategory of challenges for The Toll was was where we were shooting, which was this beautiful property, but there were a lot of things that just were kind of complicated, and it was this big kind of property. It was beautiful and trails and woods and a lake. And there was a perfect driveway down the middle that was so kind of right for the road in the movie. I mean, it was sort of, you know, I dreamed of like shooting on an actual paved road, but you just can't shut down a road anywhere for 15 days of shooting. So we had that driveway, but that in and of itself kind of posed challenges where, you know, I mean, there was a massive downpour the night before we started shooting that dredged up kind of mud across the entire property. The path turned into a bit of a river. You know, there were sort of things like that were just like sort of physical of the earth obstacles, which, you know, I mean, that kind of on some level, it was much more of a headache for Max and Jordan than it was for me. They protected me. They did an amazing job of keeping me in my place of, I need to just focus creatively on making this movie happen. And the two of them got to bear the burden of the just immense logistical challenges. So as far as I'm concerned, it was great. It's fine. No problems. So maybe they can speak more to the psychological reality of going through that.
Yeah, you guys got anything to add?
I remember the morning that the 80-foot crane fell into the ground, where literally the ground opened up an 80-foot crane, only by like 6
my gosh,
right in. And when that happened, it was, you know, we had to call it, end of the day, keep moving, you know, Nader, go to bed. Go to bed, Nader. And then, you know, just on the phone, we just wrapped. We're actors. We're on the phone now, you know, dealing with, you know, large industrial part companies coming out for emergency like excavation of the crane. And this is like, we just delivered lines. And now we're on the phone dealing with some BS that we need to sleep, guys. So that was just kind of the constant cycle. But in the end, we were always able to figure it out. We all had such passion that this film needed to be completed, that it was a story that needed to be told. So even when cranes are falling into the earth, we say, here, go to bed, we'll fix it. And we did. And, you know, probably took years off of our life, but hey, the toll was worth it.
Yeah, I'm sure it was worth it. That is wow. Oh my gosh. I can't imagine. But you guys worked together and you got through it. And like I said, the film is great. So I mean, yeah. That is all awesome, but then again, not so awesome because you don't want the ground devouring your equipment and stuff like that.
It was a horror movie, Bobby. It was a horror movie.
Yeah, life has to imitate art to some degree, otherwise it's no fun.
Yeah. All right, so I have a question about the Toll Man. So so what was the inspiration for the Toll Man, or as I should say, is there a origin story behind it? Did you guys ever think about origin story, or, you know, where he came from, anything like that?
Yeah, so I can kind of give you a two-part answer to that. One is that the original idea of the Toll Man began with kind of I've always loved the world of kind of dark highways and dark roads and the shortcuts through the woods, and the sort of the road not taken. And within that world, I mean, that was the world that I wanted to dive into once I knew I had this kind of writer-passenger relationship. And then I knew I wanted a kind of an eponymous horror character to be sort of leading the, the sort of like the horror events in the movie. And I kind of quickly arrived at the idea of a sort of a highwayman, or, the sort of storied figure of the highway robber, who in the Middle Ages was called a gentleman of the road. I saw that expression, and that was immediately, I was kind of like, that's such a great sort of horror character name. And it's such a mouthful now, so it's funny to me to think of. In the first draft, that phrase actually occurs in the movie, and then I was sort of writing it, and it was very just sort of organic, and it just came out of the process of writing. Like, okay, there's a figure in white that appears behind Spencer, and then Spencer gets out of the car and sees a message, and I literally wrote up to that point, and I didn't know what the message was going to be, and then I just kind of, my fingers went, "Please pay the toll man." I was like, I guess that's his name. So that was essentially, and then I was like, yes, I think that sounds right, and that sounds like it fits into the sort of like this modern generation of eponymous horror characters. Yeah. So it started with the kind of that gentleman of the road idea. There's just like this cosmic horror villain that's kind of the manifestation of the highway robber, lurking off the side of the road, who's going to come and force you to pay a price. But I also think, inspiration wise, it's you can draw a pretty clear line from Lovecraft to Clive Barker and Stephen King to then this modern generation of. And I think you can sort of like, you would start with Michael Myers, but then if you sort of cross Michael Myers with Lovecraft, you get like Hellraiser, right? And so then, and so nowadays you have like Mr. Boogie and Sinister, and you have Slender Man, and the characters in The Conjuring. And I certainly am aware now, I think even much more so than 4 years ago when I wrote it, it's becoming a bit of a crowded room of a lot of these characters. But my hope is that because the Toll Man, he is part of a larger mythology, and he's part of this world. And I think, and even when you ask about sort of origin story or backstory, I want there to be mystery and a lot of just unknown and just sort of uncertainty about who and what he is. I don't think it's unlike some of these other characters. It's not like an actual person was turned into Toll Man. There's something more mysterious going on there, something more otherworldly, and that's why sort of visually and physically he has this almost alien quality, this kind of unearthly, otherworldly sort of like his facial texture is bizarre, and he has this asymmetry about him. So that's all intended to convey a sense that this is, there's something uncanny and not quite human about him, almost interdimensional. Not to get, and I don't ever want to get into specifics, which is why Lorraine, the woman on the tractor, is very kind of just, it's the other place, it's his place. It's not like, I don't want to get into, I think the more you define something and the more you give something kind of specific language, the less frightening it becomes. So to me, he's the Toll Man. He's just some inexplicable figure. And I have my sort of ideas and notions about his past and sort of where else he has been in the world, where and when. But I don't think, I want to leave that unknown, at least for now. And I think that's the right way to watch the movie, is just to sort of, to not really know that much about the Toll Man, so that your imagination can fill in the rest.
Yeah, that's the best part. And I love that you're doing that, just because, like you said, if you reveal too much, it could just ruin the purpose of making them scary. That's why, going back to like John Carpenter's Halloween, where John Carpenter originally wanted Michael Myers to be just a boogeyman. You don't know nothing about him. You don't know why he's doing this. But then they ruined all of that with the second one, when he's after his sister, blah, 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 blah. And then with the other sequels, it just go, it just takes it to another place.
Totally,
so
yeah.
So it's
There's
better
a danger
with the
to over elaborating that. Yeah, I think you don't want to kind of like give too much in terms of, I think too much backstory can just eliminate some of the fear. Yeah.
Yes. Well, I mean, I love what you're doing with the Toll Man. I would like to know a little bit more, but still keep that mystery. And I love that, like you said, I think Lorraine, was it? Where she was kind of like vague about the whole situation, like the whole like storytelling, like what was going on, but she didn't really say too much, which I actually enjoyed. So I was like, I want to know, but the mystery of it all definitely makes it a little bit more terrifying. So I enjoyed that a lot. And in this movie here, I really felt bad for Jordan's character, Cammy, because she's not just dealing with one entity. I'm calling is it Spencer, right?
Mhm.
I'm calling him an entity because
I'll take your
again,
pass,
you did
yeah.
a great job, conveying that type of I guess energy to that character. But I felt bad for Cammy because she's dealing with two crazy things in this movie. And I was like, oh, poor baby. um but it was just it was definitely terrifying. And going back to the beginning of this film where I said it was kind of relatable, where because we all do use the rideshare apps like Uber and Lyft, and I'm pretty sure we probably did have those experiences where we have spoke to our Lyft or Uber driver, and it was a little awkward. And sometimes you do have those people that they talk too much where it kind of come off a little like, all right, this is a little weird. And then sometimes you have them asking weird questions, and then sometimes it becomes too quiet where it's just like, all right, maybe I should say something so it won't be too strange. I'm really skeptical when I get into those rideshare things, but sometimes I come out of Ubers and Lyfts making great friends just because we have a lot in common. So sometimes there's good in it as well. But in the case of this movie, yeah, wasn't so much good. Oh man. So where did you guys film this, by the way?
I would second that. I would say that you're absolutely right. There's a lot of good that does come out of rideshare. And I have I still text with rideshare drivers that I've met around the world, and they've become, friends. So I would say like this is an extreme situation. I still use rideshare. I love
Yeah,
rideshare.
same.
We just got to be aware of, how we adapt to this new technology and just keep our eyes open.
Exactly.
I also think there's just one of the things that I was getting at, because I agree that in no way is this meant to be some kind of condemnation or a specific kind of statement about rideshare. I do think it's, though, worth just contemplating and discussing the fact that I think if you took it in a vacuum and said, oh, we live in a world where strangers get in each other's cars and put their lives in each other's hands, that must be a very trusting society. That sounds like a utopia where everybody loves everyone else. And then you look at how our world actually is, and we've never been less trusting. We've never been more kind of like at each other's throats in a way. And maybe that suggests actually that is all a bit artificial and that we actually do trust each other. Or maybe it suggests that there's kind of, we just are doing it, we're a little bit kind of taking things for granted. We sort of aren't really thinking everything through. I don't know necessarily the answer, but I think it's worth having that discussion. And that's why, it's part of why I think the relationship, the whole just idea of a relationship between a passenger and a driver in this situation is interesting to me.
Yeah. Man. Jordan, do you have anything to go on with it?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything that these guys say. I think it's, in no way is the movie supposed to be like a judgment on rideshare at all. Like they all said, we all still use it, but it's just something to think about. It's like, I was just listening to what Nader was saying, and it is true. Like it kind of speaks to how our society places convenience over, like safety in a way, because if you think about it, your parents always tell you don't get in cars with strangers. And now, we do it all the time.
We all are.
Yeah. But no, I mean, it's definitely worth a discussion, and hopefully this movie will spark that discussion and people will talk about it.
Yeah, which is out on DVD and Blu-ray, by the way, right?
I think so.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And very nice. He's got.
Oh wait, hold on. Let me see that again. I gotta see it. Is it like holographic?
It is holographic. Yeah, look at that. It's
love that.
Lionsgate did a really good job with it. It's a gorgeous Blu-ray. There you go, guys.
Love it.
I
haven't gotten mine yet.
Copy.
Yeah, I need to get myself one too. It looks great.
And hey, Bobby, on Thursday we're actually launching a giveaway online, and we're giving away 5 Blu-rays signed by all 3 of us.
Okay.
To lucky people on social media, on Instagram. So if they just follow it at 4 a.m. Films, 4 a.m. Film Studios. Sorry.
Okay.
At 4 a.m. Film Studios.
Got it.
You can have an opportunity to win one of these 5 signed Blu-rays.
Oh, I'm going right after this. I will be doing that. I have to add it to my collection because I collect a whole bunch of movies, so it will be there. It will be there.
Awesome.
If I don't win it, I'm getting it regardless. So
Yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Yes.
So guys, before we go, because I obviously don't want to hold you up because you started this stuff a little late, but do you guys have any favorite horror movies? What is your favorite?
I'll let Max and Jordan start just in case I go on too long. You guys start.
He's
You sound like me, Mike.
Yeah.
horror junkie. For me, like I love all genres of film, but if I had to like, really narrow it down to horror, the one that affected me, I'll give you two. The one that gave me the most amount of nightmares in my entire life, it really did screw me up. Weird. Sleepy Hollow.
Okay.
Not what you were expecting, right?
It's dark though. It is dark though.
It was just like, I think the age that I saw it, it affected me really heavily. It was just like the idea, I think it was early cell phone times, and everyone, I think it was in middle school, everyone was getting cell phones and becoming uber connected. And then all of a sudden I see this movie where, they're in the middle of nowhere. And if anything were to happen, a guy comes along, cuts off people's heads or whatever the case is, they're in there's no way to communicate with the outside world. And to me, that was scary. And then it made me fear like the country and the whole kind of like Nader saying the dark roads.
Yeah.
So that's just, it was an interesting film for me where it really did affect my kind of outlook on life, which was weird. But anyway, The Descent would be the scariest one that I've seen as of late. I would say I loved The Descent.
Those are great.
My favorite horror movie is Strangers.
That's great.
And it's funny that you say that. Sorry to cut you off, Graham, because I did see a little bit of Stranger vibes in this movie,
Yeah.
Including a specific homage. Yeah, there's a
it was mentioned in this movie too.
Yeah.
It was definitely mentioned here. But sorry, Jordan.
No, I was so happy when I read that in the script, because it's like, it's one of those movies that's just really, really affected me. And I actually worked with one of the producers on it on another film called House at the End of the Street, and I was just like, tell me everything about this movie. So I love movie, like the ones that really affect me are the ones where you really think, oh, this could happen to you. Like somebody could just show up at your door and just torture you for, simply because you're home, which is, so terrifying. So that's my answer.
And there's a moment in that in addition to the movie mentioning it, I'm kind of mentioning it almost as a way of giving credit, because there's a shot that's very inspired by The Strangers, which is the best moment of that movie, which is early on, you're just seeing all of these people from very far away outside the house. And you're like, you assume, okay, this is going to be a slow progression. They're going to get closer and closer. And then by the very end, they'll break into the house. But then, whatever it is, 15 minutes in the movie, Liv Tyler is lighting a cigarette, and behind her in the kitchen, one of the masked men walks in. And is just standing there.
Parts.
There's no music. It is just simply, it's just there. And when, in the audience watching that movie, some people notice earlier than others. So some people start screaming, and just the effect of that is just marvelous. And obviously this is our moment of that, which is a tiny, not nearly as good, but the Tollman's first appearance when he walks out from behind the car, that was a very early image for the movie, and was very much, I've just always been obsessed with that shot, Strangers.
I've seen it, and those jump scares are super effective. I'm not one to jump at any little thing, you know what I mean? But in this movie, I literally like jumped. I was just like, hold up. It's because I watch a lot of horror movies, and sometimes I could just smell things it comes from a mile away. But in this movie, I was not expecting that. So,
Good, I'm glad. Yeah, there was definitely a lot of, there was a lot of like calibrating that went into like playing the expectations game with the audience. If I know you're going to expect a scare here, and then I'm going to deny you the scare, and then I'm going to give you a scare where you're not expecting it. That just it's so a psychological game. And then I'll just briefly say, I'll just list off a few that I feel like are not seen enough, that I wish people would see more. And they are The Innocents, which is a Jack Clayton film in 1961, which is kind of, the creepy child trope, to me, has not been ever done nearly as well as it's done in that movie. And that's a telling of the turning of the screw, and a Haunting of Bly Manor recently is also a take on that.
Oh,
And then,
okay.
yeah, so it's very similar. So, and then also Carnival of Souls, I think also 1961.
I've seen it. Yeah.
And yeah, which is phenomenal and bizarre and surreal and just deeply unsettling. And then less a horror movie, but to me, the scariest movie there is that I wish more people would have seen is the movie Come and See.
Okay.
And it was a movie actually directed during the 80s in the Soviet Union. And it's a war film, but it has inspired a lot of horror movies. And is sort of just a kid making his way through this like battle-torn land, and is hallucinatory and bizarre and surreal. And yeah, I think that's one of the most terrifying movie I've seen, I think. So I'll just give you, I'll leave you with those three.
Awesome. And so the first one you said was The Innocents?
The Innocents, yes.
All right, I'm gonna check that out. That
You
seems
should.
very interesting.
It's
I'm gonna check that
one
out.
of my faves, yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. Well, again, guys, I guess that concludes our conversation. Thanks so much for joining me this morning to talk about the toll. I want everybody to watch this film. I already told a few people about it. I'm gonna tweet about it, write about it. I'm gonna do a review on it on my channel. Just because again, it was very effective and I love it. And I feel like a lot of people would relate to it a little bit more just because there's a little bit more of some personal experiences in here. I love George's character, Cammy. I related to her a lot, even though in the beginning I was just like, all right, she's tired, she's a little cranky. But in actuality, I would react that way too if it's like 1 o'clock in the morning, I'm coming off a flight that's not, I'm not having the best experiences on, and I get into a car with somebody that I can't really trust. And he's giving me reasons not to trust him. Yeah, it's a lot. So I'm pretty sure a lot of people can relate to that type of situation there. The paranormal stuff, I don't know, maybe somebody else could relate to that in their own story.
I hope not.
I hope not either. Maybe the toll man's really out there, who knows, and you just conjure something up, Mike.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
Oh man. Well, again, thanks again, guys. Thanks for the audiences for watching this on YouTube, Facebook, and all that stuff. And thank you, Fangoria, for hosting this. This is amazing. You can check out this recording on YouTube and Facebook coming very soon, probably hopefully at the end of this week. And you also can share this with your friends so people can know our awesome friends here. You guys are great. Thank you so much.
Thank you. That was awesome.
Yeah, of course. And make sure you guys subscribe to the newsletter to know about future panels. And you also could take a survey to see if you want to see other future panels of your liking or things like that. Again, I'm Bobby Torrez, and this is Michael Nader. This is Max Topplin and Jordan Hayes. And we just talked about the toll. Thanks again, guys.